the function f of x, which is equal to 100 times a half to the power of x plus 1. Okay, well, I know how to sketch exponential functions and how to move functions around if I've changed the formula, so I'll get started on that. So let's see. A half to the x would be 1 here, and then here at 1 it would be a half, because I keep multiplying by half, and here at 2 it would be a quarter, and then over here, here at -1 it would be a half to the -1, which is 2, and it would go sort of like this. Okay, so that's currently y equals a half to the power of x, and then it's times by 100, which means this 1 isn't a 1, it's 100. And this 2 here isn't a 2, it's a 200. And this half isn't a half, it's a 50. All of the y values get multiplied by 100. Okay. All right, so that's now 100 times a half to the power of x. And then the x plus 1 instead of the x will shift everything backwards by 1, which I guess is the same as shifting this y-axis forwards, really. That's 50, that's 100, and that's 200. And so that's my graph. Okay, cool. I reckon I want to try it a second way just to see how it works. So I'm going to try rewriting the formula first and seeing if I can get this a second way. So let me try rewriting the formula. So 100 times a half to the x plus 1. Well, powers plus 1, addition up in the exponent would be multiplication, so that'd be like a half to the x times a half to the 1. And this is all multiplication, so it doesn't really matter what order it happens in. So I can keep the half to the x and go 100 times a half, so that's 50 times a half to the x. Okay, cool. But a half is the same as 2 to the power of -1. And so that'd be 50 times 2 to the minus x. Okay, so that graph could have been adjusted from the graph of 2 to the x instead. So let me try doing that. So 2 to the x would be 1 here and 2 here, and 4 here, and then a half, and then a quarter. So that's y equals 2 to the power of x. And then 50 times that, everything would be 50 times what it was. So that'd be 50, 100, and 200 here. Okay. But, so sorry, this is now 50 times 2 to the power of x. And then when I replace the x with the minus x, the whole thing will flip backwards. So it'll be something like, was like this. I'm just going to put the y-axis in as well. And then the whole thing will flip this way because all the negative x's will become positive x's. So it'll go like that instead. So I do really need to draw a whole separate graph for that, don't I? That. So 50, 100, 200, and it's going down now, isn't it? So this should be y equals 50 times 2 to the minus x, which is the same as 100 times a half of x plus 1. And yes, it is exactly the same graph as I drew before. So that's two ways to achieve the same graph. Cool.